What if the thing you're most proud of is quietly killing you? Let's say you worked late last night. You skipped lunch. You crushed 5 deadlines and crossed off 20 tasks. People praised you. You felt accomplished. But deep down, there's a voice that never stops whispering, "What's next?" And when you finally try to rest, to breathe, that voice turns into guilt. This video is about that voice and the system that trained you to need it. Because what if we told you productivity isn't just a habit? It's an addiction. Imagine a lab rat pushing a lever again and again for the chance of a reward. Now imagine that rat is you, chasing checklists, inbox zero, perfect routines, not because it brings peace, but because your brain has been chemically wired to crave it. This isn't ambition, it's conditioning. And you're not lazy. You're just tired of sprinting through a maze you never chose. In this documentary, we'll uncover how productivity became a modern religion, forged by history, reinforced by psychology, exploited by capitalism. We'll ask the question no one dares to. If you're not constantly producing, do you still believe you're valuable? If that question hits a nerve, stay with us. Because what you're about to hear may not feel comfortable, but it might be the most important thing you've ever unlearned. The cult of hustle. There was a time when rest was sacred. A quiet evening meant you had lived well. A day with nothing scheduled was not wasted, it was yours. But something changed, slowly, quietly, and now, if you're not constantly grinding, building, scaling, posting, earning, you feel like you're falling behind. Somewhere along the way, exhaustion became a status symbol. Busyness became proof that you mattered. The more overwhelmed you were, the more important you must be. You scroll through timelines filled with people waking up at 5 a.m., listing their goals, tracking their calories, their sales, their followers. Rise and grind, they say, as if stillness is failure, as if silence is weakness, as if pausing is something to be ashamed of. But ask yourself, are you productive or just terrified of being still? Because stillness invites reflection, and reflection reveals emptiness. And maybe that's what hustle culture hides best. That deep, gnawing sense of inadequacy. That feeling that if you don't prove yourself every single day, you'll disappear. That beneath every goal is not purpose, but fear. And the world has monetized that fear beautifully. Apps that track your time, courses that sell you discipline, planners that promise clarity. But none of them ask the most important question: what are you running from? The cult of hustle isn't about ambition. It's about addiction, to distraction, to validation, to the dopamine of getting things done even if they mean nothing. And here's the paradox. You're optimizing every moment of your life while quietly losing the parts that actually make life worth living. Peace, presence, joy that isn't tied to achievement. Because if you stop, even for a moment, who are you without the doing? You were not born to compete with a machine. You were not built to be efficient. You were built to be alive. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most rebellious thing you can be now. Work as worship, a historical obsession. Before productivity became a buzzword, it was a virtue. And before it was a virtue, it was a moral obligation. We tend to think hustle culture is a Silicon Valley phenomenon, the result of tech startups, hustle bros, and 10x life coaches. But the roots go far deeper. This obsession with doing, with proving your worth through output, is centuries old. It didn't begin with entrepreneurs, it began with the soul. Let's go back. In the 16th century, a cultural shift quietly reshaped the Western world. The Protestant Reformation brought with it not just religious change, but a new morality. One where salvation wasn't found in prayer alone, but in work. Max Weber, the German sociologist, called it the Protestant work ethic, the belief that diligent labor, thrift, and discipline were signs of divine favor. In this worldview, idleness wasn't just unproductive, it was sinful. And so, slowly, work stopped being a means of survival and became a measure of virtue. But this wasn't just spiritual, it became industrial. The Industrial Revolution took that religious ethic and mechanized it. Suddenly, time was no longer something you lived in. It was something you sold. The factory system needed bodies, clocks, routines. Efficiency became holy. Schedules became sacred. And those who couldn't keep up were labeled lazy, defective, or immoral. Karl Marx saw it happening. He wrote of alienation, the process by which laborers became separated from their work, from each other, and from themselves. Humans reduced to output, Value measured by productivity, not presence. And even now, long after the smoke of the factories has cleared, the echoes remain. We still feel guilt when we rest. We still feel shame when we're not doing enough. We still whisper to ourselves, I should be working, even when there's nothing left to do. Why? Because productivity isn't just a habit anymore, it's a belief system etched into the foundations of Western identity. To be worthy is to be busy. To be valuable is to be exhausted. To be good is to produce. You weren't born believing this, you were trained to. And the question now isn't just whether it's unhealthy, but whether it was ever true at all. Dopamine, deadlines, and the addiction to efficiency. Let's start with a disturbing truth. You don't crave productivity because you love working. You crave it because your brain has been chemically trained to need it. Every time you check off a task, reply to an email, hit send, your brain releases a burst of dopamine, the same neurochemical associated with gambling, drugs, sex, and social media. It's not about satisfaction, it's about stimulation, anticipation, control. You're not chasing peace, you're chasing that next hit. This is the dopamine feedback loop, and it's been weaponized. Behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered that when rewards are delivered inconsistently, what's called variable reinforcement, organisms become obsessed. Rats will press levers endlessly if the reward is unpredictable, because unpredictability triggers dopamine spikes even stronger than guaranteed success. Now replace the rat with a modern knowledge worker. Emails, texts, Slack pings, KPI updates, most of them don't matter, but some do. And your brain learns, better keep pressing that lever just in case. Productivity becomes a slot machine. Every completed task is a coin, every project a jackpot. But unlike a casino, you're not gambling for money, you're gambling for self-worth. Apps are designed to exploit this. To-do list streaks, habit chains, gamified calendars. Every checkbox becomes a dopamine button, keeping you looped in a cycle of tiny wins. And those tiny wins feel good until you stop. Then comes the silence, the stillness, and something worse, the crash. Because when the hits stop coming, your brain panics. This is withdrawal, and it doesn't look like shaking or sweating. It looks like restlessness, guilt, anxiety. You sit on the couch to relax and immediately reach for your phone. You try to take a day off and feel shame by noon. You tell yourself, I should be doing something. But what you mean is, I need another hit. Rest isn't restful anymore, it's punishment. Because in a dopamine-driven mind, stillness feels like suffocation. Now enter the illusion of control. One of the cruelest tricks of this addiction is the sense that you're in charge. You build your own schedule, you choose your projects, you set your goals. But if you dig deeper, how many of those choices are just reactions? To pressure, to metry, to the invisible scoreboard constantly flashing in your mind. You're behind, you're behind, you're behind. Modern productivity turns data into identity. Not just what you achieved, but how fast, how often, how visible it was. You don't just perform, you measure your worth in performance. The problem is, no number is ever enough. 10 tasks today. Tomorrow it needs to be 12. One promotion? Now you need 2. A 5 a.m. routine? Let's make it 4:30. This is how optimization becomes obsession. Every win resets the baseline. Every moment becomes an opportunity to improve. And slowly, unknowingly, you start to lose the ability to do something just because it brings you peace. So why is it so hard to stop? Because this addiction hides in plain sight. It looks like responsibility, discipline, success. But behind the spreadsheets and schedules is a nervous system in constant fight or flight, flooded, tense, chained to achievement. And the worst part, you're praised for it, rewarded, promoted, admired. No one stages interventions for overachievers. No one tells the burned-out entrepreneur to seek help. They say, you're killing it. But are you? Or are you slowly killing the part of yourself that once found joy in the moment, before the moment had to be productive? The brain can adapt to almost anything, even captivity if you decorate the cage with enough checklists. But you weren't meant to live like this. And the longer you stay in the loop, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before the chase began. When rest feels like guilt, you finally cleared your schedule. No calls, no deadlines, nothing urgent, and yet you can't relax. You sit down, maybe open a book, maybe just stare out the window. But within minutes, that voice creeps in. You're wasting time. You should be doing something. This isn't productive. And just like that, the stillness turns sour. Not because anything is wrong, but because your brain has been trained to fear it. This is the hidden cost of hustle. Rest becomes guilt, not because you failed, but because you've internalized the idea that being is never enough unless it's leading to doing. You may not clock in, you may not report to a boss, but inside there's still a supervisor, one who never clocks out, one who watches, judges, and whispers, "What are you contributing right now?" Psychologists call this internalized capitalism, a belief system where your worth is measured by your output even when no one's watching. It's why you feel shame on lazy Sundays. It's why vacations come with guilt. It's why even hobbies now feel like they need to become side hustles. You're not just working longer, you're working in your head, even when your body is at rest. The brain, conditioned by years of reward chasing and self-comparison, can no longer sit in silence without craving productivity like a drug. You've turned your inner life into a performance. And now, you monitor your own leisure like a factory monitors a shift change. But this goes deeper, because the inability to rest isn't just about time. It's about identity. If you're not working, who are you? If you're not achieving, what are you worth? This is why so many people don't just burn out, they break. Because when work stops and there's no internal scaffolding left to hold them up, they collapse into emptiness. That's what makes this addiction so devastating. It doesn't just exhaust your body, it erodes your ability to exist without proving yourself. And somewhere along the way, joy becomes suspicious. Leisure becomes shameful, peace becomes unfamiliar. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you can't rest, you're not free. Not mentally, not emotionally, not spiritually. Freedom isn't just about having time. It's about not needing to earn your right to use it. And if that sentence makes you uneasy, good. That's where the healing begins. The corporate machine and the illusion of self-worth. You're told to follow your passion, to do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. But somehow you're working every day of your life and you're still not free. Because behind the smiles and slogans is a system that has learned how to monetize your ambition. A system that feeds off your need to feel valuable and sells it back to you in the form of productivity tools, optimization routines, and hustle mantras. This is no accident. This is design. Tech companies don't just sell you apps, they sell you dopamine loops. Your calendar app rewards streaks. Your email client gamifies inbox zero. Your project management software turns tasks into badges, but they never ask, does this work matter? Only, how fast can you finish it? Productivity isn't about depth anymore, it's about velocity, visibility, output per hour, and the more efficient you become, the more you're expected to be. Then there's the self-help industry, a billion-dollar machine built on the promise of becoming your best self. But listen closely, that best self is always more optimized, more focused, more disciplined. The books, the courses, the coaches, they don't tell you to rest. They tell you to rise at 5 a.m. and monetize your peace. Even your healing becomes a business plan. Meanwhile, corporate environments silently reward overcommitment. The employee who works late? A team player. The one who skips lunch? Dedicated. The one who never says no? Leadership potential. But set a boundary? You're not invested. Take a mental health day. You're not pulling your weight. Say no to burnout culture. You're not passionate enough. They don't need to force you to overwork. They just praise you for doing it to yourself. And then come the influencers, the online prophets of hustle, ambition, and grind set. They film their routines, they flaunt their calendars, they sell you an identity built on burnout and call it motivation. But it's never about meaning. It's about metrics, views, growth, scale, winning the day. They don't tell you what it costs, only what it earns. This is how the machine stays fed, by turning your worth into a scoreboard, by branding your exhaustion as excellence, by convincing you that if you just push a little harder, you'll finally be enough. But you won't, because the finish line always moves. And the system? It profits every time you sprint. Escaping the grind. Is freedom even allowed anymore? Imagine this, you wake up and there's nothing to optimize, no list, no calendar, no pressure to make the most of the day. Just time, just breathe, just you. Now ask yourself, does that feel liberating or terrifying? Because the truth is, we've been trained to fear freedom. Unplugging doesn't feel like peace anymore. It feels like disappearing. You close your laptop and suddenly you're faced with a question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. If I'm not being productive, do I still matter? Philosopher Erich Fromm warned us of this decades ago. He wrote that modern man has become a human having, defined not by who he is, but by what he produces. We don't say, I am. We say, I do. And if we're not doing, we feel like we're fading. But this is a lie, a dangerous one, because if your entire sense of self is tethered to output, you will never know who you are outside of exhaustion. Alan Watts described this trap as the backwards law. The more you chase something, the more it eludes you. Chase happiness and you become anxious. Chase peace and you become restless. Chase productivity and you lose the very life you were trying to build. And what if the real rebellion isn't to hustle harder, but to stop chasing entirely? Anthropologist David Graeber pointed to a different model. He studied cultures where time was not a resource to be spent, but a field to be lived in, where value wasn't measured by busyness, but by presence. He asked, what if most of what we call work is just noise? Tasks invented to keep people obedient, busy enough to not question, tired enough to not rebel. So here we are, exhausted and accomplished, efficient and empty, always achieving, never arriving. And the question we must ask, urgently, honestly, is this: what if your addiction to productivity isn't making you successful, but stealing your life in pieces you're too busy to notice? Because presence is a kind of wealth, and stillness is a kind of strength, and being fully human might be the most radical thing you can do in a system that wants you to be a machine. So now the question isn't whether you're productive enough, it's whether you're present at all. If this made you pause even for a moment, you're already doing the one thing this system fears most: thinking for yourself. If this message stirred something in you, share it with a friend, with someone you know is burning out quietly. And if you want to keep exploring the invisible forces shaping your mind, your choices, your life, subscribe, not for more content, but for more clarity. Because in a world addicted to speed, reflection is the real rebellion. Right now, there are 2 videos on your screen, handpicked just for you. Click to watch them. I'm sure you'll love every second.